Hi, my name is Fionna Lali and I am the national organiser of the Marxist Student Federation, which operates in Britain. We organise hundreds of students in universities and schools across the country around the ideas of Marxism, class struggle, and to fight for socialism, both in Britain and internationally, of course. And this May Day, which is a really important day for workers, something we're thinking about in particular is the situation facing women workers. In normal times, working class women are doubly oppressed in society, once as workers, and secondly as women. And during this coronavirus pandemic, this huge crisis of capitalism, we're really seeing a lot of the issues that normally affect women and normally push women to the bottom of society become even more intense, and they're pushed into even worse living conditions than they do in normal times. And women are really having to bear the brunt of this pandemic, I would say. For working class communities, this pandemic is really representing a social crisis on top of an economic one and a medical one, of course. And in the UK, we are currently on lockdown, which means that you're not allowed to leave your home apart from very specific reasons, collecting food or medicine, for example. And just to give an example, one of the largest domestic abuse charities in the UK, Refuge, said that they had an increase of about 700% in terms of the amount of calls they were receiving in one day. And so we can already see how the lockdown is intensifying terrible conditions that people are having to live in, and this is something that particularly affects women in terms of domestic abuse. But more so than that, you know, what we're seeing is social care, care of the elderly, childcare, has suddenly become a really demanding task, a really present task in people's lives, and particularly women's lives. And it's women in a lot of places who now have to juggle trying to work from home, looking after children, and various other things. And you know, the virus obviously is as well affecting our frontline staff. In the UK, NHS workers, a lot of nurses are dying already at a really alarming rate. And you know, for those who aren't essential workers, like the frontline staff in supermarkets and hospitals and various other things, a lot of people are facing economic insecurity, but in particular it's those in precarious work on 0 hours contracts who are really facing financial hardship and difficulty, and it is women and young people who are forced into precarious work the most. So in some respects it's quite easy to point out the oppression that women face in society. It's quite easy for us to describe that. But as Marxists, our job really is not just to point these things out and describe them, but it's to understand it and understand why are women in this position, why is coronavirus affecting women in this way more so. And the simple answer to that question is class society, really, and this is something that we have to explain. First and foremost, the capitalist system regards women as a convenient source of cheap labour. It's very useful for capitalism to divide men and women, and we see this through the gender pay gap, for example, the types of jobs that men and women are able to do, and the working conditions of those jobs as well. Women are viewed as risky investments because of the possibility of pregnancy and maternity leave. It's more profitable from the point of view of a boss to not hire a woman, and so we see how women get forced into more precarious work as a result of that. All of this feeds into cultural attitudes that are fostered and promoted in society that categorise women as weak and subservient, and therefore less able to perform the tasks necessary in more demanding, high-profile jobs that men would typically fill. And another thing that's really important for us to explain is that it's very useful for capitalism to maintain the bourgeois family unit. The way in which families are organised under capitalism it plays a certain role because women play a certain role within that unit, which is essentially to perform domestic labour for free. And a lot of these tasks might include cooking, cleaning, the maintenance of the household, childcare. But really all of these things can and should be socialised with laundrettes and canteens and shared out amongst society. But it's much more profitable and therefore very useful under capitalism for women to play this certain role in the house, because in doing so what they're able to do is completely privatise all of this domestic labour rather than opening it up and socialising it. And this is another really important aspect of the way that women are oppressed under capitalism, and the way that that oppression is maintained as well in society. So when we see women nurses, for example, dying on the front line in the NHS in very low paid jobs, in general in capitalism in society, being paid less due to the gender pay gap, living in worse conditions, we understand that the fight against all of that, the fight against those conditions, really is the fight against capitalism, and that is the same for male workers. And that's what we've got to think about on May Day when considering the position of women in society, because women workers collectively with men, with male workers, are the only ones who can fight to abolish those conditions completely through fighting capitalism and through fighting for a socialist society. So we have to fight to overthrow capitalism in order to get rid of this oppression that has kept women at the bottom of society for so long. And that must be the task of male and female workers collectively in order to fight for a better world. So thank you.